The South African Navy is the naval warfare branch of the South African National Defence Force. The role of the Navy is to prepare for and to conduct naval operations in defence of the RSA, its citizens and interests, and to carry out peacetime operations in support of other national objectives. Other tasks include the maintenance, preservation and the provision of naval services in support of other state departments and authorities, including search and rescue, protection of maritime resources, and diplomatic sea transport support. History. The South African Navy can trace its official origins back to the SA Naval Service, which was established on 15 November 1921. Unofficially, however, the SAN can trace its history even further back, to the Naval Volunteers, which was formed in Durban on 30 April 1885, as well as to the Cape Naval Volunteers, which was formed in Cape Town in 1905. On 1 July 1913, these two units were amalgamated to form the South African Division of the Royal Naval, the Volunteer Reserve. During World War I, a total of 164 members of the RNVR served in the Royal Navy, and a total of 412 South Africans served in the RNVR during the war, while the naval base at Simonstown played a strategic role to the Allies. The first ships acquired by the newly formed Navy were HMSAS Protea, HMSAS Sonblom and HMSAS Immortelle. However, the Great Depression meant the government had to cut back, and the ships acquired by the Navy were handed back to the Royal Navy. World War II. When World War II broke out, the South African Naval Service was virtually non-existent, with only 3 officers and 3 ratings. In January 1940, a new naval unit, called the Seawood Defence Force, was formed. Rear Admiral Guy Halifax CMG, who had retired in South Africa from the Royal Navy, was appointed director of the Seawood Defence Force. This unit was to be responsible for operating the minesweepers, anti-submarine ships, and the other inspection and signalling duties in South African waters. From 1941, a number of SDF anti-submarine trawlers served in the Mediterranean. The Seawood Defence Force and the South African RNVR were consolidated on 1 August 1942 to form the South African Naval Forces. Due to the strong Royal Navy influence on its origins, South African Naval Forces used Royal Navy ranks. Post-World War II. On 1 May 1946, the SANF was reconstituted as part of the Union Defence Force. It was renamed South African Navy on 1 July 1951. The title of HMSAS was changed to SHASH in 1952, and the crown in the SANCAP badge was replaced with the Lion of Nassau from the crest of the country's coat of arms in 1959, 2 years before South Africa became a republic. In 1947, the SANF acquired 3 additional ships: the Algerian-class minesweepers HMSAS Rosamond, HMSAS Pelorus, and the Flower-class corvette HMSAS Rockrose. The SAN's first destroyer, Shashan van Riebeek, was transferred to South Africa on 29 March 1950. The SAN's second destroyer, Shash Simon van Estel, was handed over to the Navy on 23 February 1953. Meanwhile, negotiations were taking place between the British and South African governments on the future of the Royal Navy's base at Simonstown. The outcome of these talks was that the base was transferred to the Union on 2 April 1957 under the terms of the Simonstown Agreement, and that the Navy would purchase 4 additional frigates, 10 coastal minesweepers and 5 Seawood defence boats from Britain. In 1963 the first of the Type 12 President-class frigates were delivered, and in 1970 the Navy received the first of its 3 Daphne-class submarines from France, the first of which being named Chasse Maria van Riebeek, after Jan van Riebeek's Walloon wife. Political unrest in Soweto and elsewhere prompted the apartheid government to take even sterner measures in an attempt to keep the opposition under control, which in turn led to a mandatory arms embargo against South Africa in 1977. As a result of this, 2 corvettes and 2 Augusta-class submarines that had been ordered for the Navy were not delivered. Instead, South Africa covertly ordered the strike craft from Israel, 3 being built in Israel and 6 in South Africa. In 1977, the then chief of the South African Defence Force changed the Navy's focus to that of a coastal navy, and as the border war began to escalate, the Navy's budget was cut dramatically. The border conflict ended in April 1989 and was followed by cutbacks in all arms of the South African Defence Force, and the Navy had to retrench approximately 23% of its personnel. The South African Marines were disbanded and the 2 naval commands were closed, as were the naval bases Cape Town and Walvis Bay. Post-1994, after the first democratic elections in South Africa, the South African Navy once again started showing the flag around the world and began participating in exercises with other navies. In 1997, the South African Navy celebrated 75 years with 15 countries sending ships for the festivities. The need to re-equip the Navy was addressed by what is known as the arms deal, and the Navy acquired 4 frigates as well as 3 submarines. The Maritime Rescue Co-Ordination Center was located in a bunker at Silvermine. In 2004, this function passed from the Department of Defense to the South African Maritime Safety Authority, an agency of the Department of Transport. The MRCC is located within the SAMSA Center for Sea Watch and Response. A budget of roughly R2.55 billion was allocated for the Navy for the 2012-2013 fiscal year. Despite an updated fleet, All African reported in December 2010 that the Navy's capabilities are limited and it would have difficulty contributing to anti-piracy efforts off Somalia. All African reported in January 2011 that with the Navy's current budget it would only be able to put 1 frigate and support ship to sea at any given time. It was thought that such a deployment would deplete the 2011 annual operational budget. The Navy conducts several naval warfare and patrol exercises per year despite its budget problems, such as Exercise Red Lion. It regularly participates in exercises with other national navies such as the United States Navy, NATO naval battle groups, German Navy, Royal Navy, Indian Navy, National Navy of Uruguay and the Brazilian Navy. At least 1 or 2 Valor-class frigates and 1 Heroine-class submarine takes part in these multinational exercises, usually along with aircraft support from the South African Air Force. The Navy has also provided security for the 2010 FIFA World Cup by deploying 3 frigates to the coastal waters off the cities of Durban, Port Elizabeth and Cape Town. The frigates' sophisticated air and sea surveillance radars allowed them to provide security for the events taking place along the coast. In recent years, several decommissioned Warrior-class strike craft were refurbished by SAR shipyards and recommissioned as offshore patrol vessels. Their aged Scapione missile launchers were removed, providing extra room for a small RHIB boat and a small contingent of seaborne commandos to board suspect vessels, reclassed as OPVs. These vessels are armed with 1 or 2 OTO Melara 76mm naval artillery gun as well as a pair of 20mm guns and a pair of 12.7mm heavy machine guns. 3 of the former strike craft were refurbished and are commissioned as Shash Isaac Dioba, Shash Gales Hugh and Shash Makanda. A 4th vessel, Shash Adam Cock, is being considered for refurbishment. However, as of August 2014 it appears unlikely that this 4th vessel will be converted, though its fate remains undetermined. The South African Navy Director Force Preparation has also said that they hope to use these craft as training vessels for the Naval Training Base, Shash Saldanha. A further 4 ex-mine hunter vessels are also being operated in the OPV role. These include Shash Umko Mas, Shash Umloti, Shash Zumkulu and Shash Umgini. Rear Admiral Hanno Teuterberg, Chief Director Maritime Strategy, said in 2013 that the early indications are that the life of the OPV vessels can be extended for at least 5 or more years. To coincide with Project Biro, the new-build offshore-inshore patrol vessel project, the Navy currently has a warship deployed in the Mozambique Channel to support the anti-piracy initiative, Operation Copper, which aims to dissuade pirates from operating in southern African waters. The operation has been running since 2011 after several ships were attacked by pirates in the area. All of the Navy's Valor-class frigates have been deployed in the region on rotation since the operation first began. The refurbished Warrior-class OPVs have also been deployed several times. The Navy's single replenishment vessel Shash Drakensberg has also spent time on station. The vessels are supported by a C-47TP maritime patrol aircraft and rotary-winged aircraft, including Super Lynx and Oryx helicopters from the South African Air Force. In addition to ship's crews, the Navy has also deployed elements of its maritime reaction squadron aboard vessels in the Mozambique Channel. Naval Base Durban, previously downgraded to a naval station in 2002, is being upgraded to a fully fledged naval base to house the newly refurbished Warrior-class offshore patrol vessels, as well as those to be procured through Project Biro in the future. Rear Admiral Mosuwa Longwen commented that the re-establishment of the naval base on Salisbury Island is on track and the OPVs will be stationed in Durban, as this facility is in the heart of South Africa's busiest harbour. A balance has to be found between commercial and defence requirements in the ever-growing Durban port. This also gives the South African Navy an operating base from which it can more effectively conduct missions along the South African eastern coast and in the Indian Ocean. In December 2015 the facility was redesignated a naval base. Decommissioned ships Marines. The South African Marine Corps was set up as a sub-branch of the Navy in 1979, with the primary purpose of protecting harbours. Marines were also deployed at Katima Mulilo in southwest Africa during the South African Border War, where they were responsible for patrolling the Zambezi River. The Marines also acted as regular infantry at the border until 1988, as well as performing counter-insurgency operations inside South Africa. During township duties in the mid-1980s, the detachment used facilities at Shashrand in Johannesburg and on Signal Hill outside of Heidelberg. The Marines had an amphibious landing capability by operating from Tafelberg and Drakensberg. An elite company, named the Marine Amphibious Company, was formed to ensure the beachhead capability for landing large task forces. The Marines trained and fielded a small elite reconnaissance detachment between 1983 and 1989, under the direct control of the Marine CO. They received airborne, diver and urban countermeasures training from other Army units within the SADF. The Marines were disbanded on the 18th of January 1990, following a major restructuring of the Navy at the end of the South African Border War. A maritime reaction squadron was established in 2005, which is effectively a Marine Corps Ensign Command, Control and AMP. Organization. The command structure is depicted below. The Chief of the Navy, based at Navy headquarters at the Navy office located in Pretoria, heads up the South African Navy. All operational forces, including ships and submarines, fall under the control of the Flag Officer Fleet, who is based in Simonstown. Fleet Command includes all vessels and units of the Navy other than Naval Headquarters, Pretoria. Fleet Command is based in Simonstown under control of Flag Officer Fleet. 4 directorates are responsible for the day-to-day control of Fleet Command. Director Fleet Force Preparations is responsible for the day-to-day running of the ships and submarines and for ensuring their operational readiness. The Maritime Reaction Squadron and NavComsons also report to DFFP. Director Fleet Human Resources is responsible for all training and manning and also controls the training units. Director Fleet Quality Assurance is responsible for the output of Fleet Command and monitoring quality assurance throughout Fleet Command. Director Fleet Logistics is responsible for all logistics units as well as for the maintenance of the fleet. Naval bases. The Navy operates the following naval bases: Naval Base Simonstown, the only full naval base currently in the SAN. All combat units have been concentrated here in an attempt to curb costs. The base also houses training facilities for the new frigates and submarines. A naval dockyard is also situated here, although it is in the process of being privatized. Naval-based urban. Naval-based urban, built during the Second World War, was scaled down to a naval station in 2002 with the rationalization of the fleet. In April 2013 it was announced that the base would be reopened and upgraded to assist with the piracy mission on Africa's east coast and to establish a permanent fleet presence on the east coast. In December 2015 it was redesignated a naval base. Naval Station Port Elizabeth provides support to the fleet. Training units. SHASH Saldanha, located on the west coast and provides training and development for ratings. SHASH Wingfield, located in the Greater Cape Town area, provides practical training for apprentices and the technical musterings. SHASH Simonsburg, training in gunnery, anti-submarine warfare, communications, diving and seamanship. South African Naval College, Gordons Bay, training college for naval officers. Maritime Warfare School, Simonstown. NBCD School, Nuclear, Biological, Chemical, Damage Control Training. Personnel. As of the 1st of September 2011 there are approximately 6,104 active uniformed members, augmented by 13 civilians and 1,000 reserve members. The 7 Old Navy Reserve units were closed down during 2006. They were modeled on the Royal Naval Reserve Unit system. A new Navy Reserve system was created consisting of roughly 1,000 reserve posts. These posts are pooled and members drawn from them as needed to augment full-time units and ships companies. Uniforms. From 1922 to the 1950s the SA Navy was effectively part of the Royal Navy and wore the same uniforms and similar insignia. In 1959 the crown in the SANCAP badge was replaced with the Lion of Nassau from the crest of the country's coat of arms. A black beret replaced the peaked cap in working uniforms. In 2000 the new coat of arms was unveiled and the Chief of the Navy tasked Fleet Command to look at revising the Navy uniforms to reflect the new coat of arms. This saw new rank insignia for non-commissioned officers being implemented as well as the introduction of a side cap. Ranks. The rank system is based on that of the Royal Navy. Officers, warrant officers and other ranks. The warrant officer ranks were expanded in 2008, with ranks that had been substantive based on the post now becoming a rank that the person maintained. Ships and weapons. Ships, combat fleet, support fleet, Air Force, maritime aircraft. Although the SAN does not operate any aircraft itself, aircraft used on ships are supporting the SAN are operated by 22 Squadron SAR-1 times Atlas Oryx, medium utility helicopter. 4 times Westland Superlynx 300 Mk64 ASW and ASUW helicopter. There is a planned program to equip the frigates with UAVs to supplement the helicopters. Previously, before its retirement, the SAF operated the Westland Wasp from the SAN in the anti-submarine warfare role. Naval Weapons Systems Maritime Reaction Squadron. The Maritime Reaction Squadron provides an amphibious, diving and small boat capability to the Navy, deploying infantry-trained South African Navy personnel in various peacekeeping roles within the African continent and to assist in boarding, operations at sea, humanitarian operations and disaster relief. The Maritime Reaction Squadron was formed as the Naval Rapid Deployment Force in 2005. The squadron consists of the following components: Operational Boat Division with 10 Namakura-class harbor patrol boats and 6 Lima-class utility landing craft. Reaction Force Division consisting of 1 Naval Infantry Company with a command and support element. Operational Diving Division consisting of 4 operational diving teams of 17 divers.